Kia ora, welcome back to AM. Lovely to have you with us this morning. Unemployment, it's hit a 3-year high, but experts are not panicking. An additional 10,000 Kiwis lost their jobs in the March quarter, in line with the Reserve Bank's estimation. Milford Asset Management Investment Analyst Katlyn joins us now. This was pretty much what was expected, wasn't it?
It was. Look, the employment rate was a smidge higher than the RBNZ and the market expected, but yes, it is at a 3-year high, but it's still about only 1% higher than the record lows that we had late 2021, 2022. So it is moving higher, but it's still relatively low historically. But what is notable is that we are seeing a fall in employment growth. And this comes at a time, over the past year where our labour force has increased with the record levels of migration that we have seen. But the labour market, it typically lags the economy by 9 to 12 months. And if we think about GDP the last 5 quarters, well, 4 of them, the economy has contracted. So it does point to further weakness to come in the labour market.
The report talks about the participation rate. What is the participation rate and what does it show?
Participation rate is essentially the number of people who are employed or those who are unemployed and actively seeking employment as a percentage of the total labour force. So what we actually saw was people leaving the labour force this quarter, getting a bit fed up that there's no demand out there for them. So that was a bit concerning that we did see a drop in participation rate, but that also offsetted the unemployment rate lifting that much higher. So if participation rate had been flat, then we would have actually seen unemployment rate at about 4.5%.
Okay, so it would have been a bit higher. In terms of Kiwis' work hours, what do the Kiwis' work hours look like at the moment?
Yeah, look, on average, Kiwis are working about 0.2% more hours, an increase of 0.2% over the last year. But again, if we think about, the growth that the economy is having, it's in a period of weak growth. So that actually points to pretty poor performance in terms of New Zealand's labour productivity.
So we're working harder and getting not much in return for it?
Exactly.
Is that what it means?
Exactly.
Okay. And not getting much more money for it either. How's the market reacted to the figures that came out?
Yeah, look, this labour report, it was weak, but it doesn't show the employment market falling off a cliff yet. But what it likely did was give the market a bit of a dose of reality that things are changing, and this monetary policy that we have seen, it is starting to impact. So before the meeting, the market was expecting the cuts to start at the end of this year in November. And after the report, they got more conviction of this. So they're putting a higher probability that we will get the first cut in November. But look, all this report is telling us right now is that things are softening and they are on the way down, but it's from a pretty high level.
Okay, so it hasn't really affected the way that people are approaching the Reserve Bank's OCR, what they're going to do by the end of the year, because they were thinking it's going to cut, and you've just said they are thinking more likely they're going to cut it.
Yeah, look, it doesn't really change the dial, and formally speaking, the Reserve Bank now don't have to consider the labour market when they're making their decision, because the new government, their sole mandate now is to tackle inflation. But if you think about it, what happens in the labour market does have massive inflationary impacts. If you're worried about losing your job, you're going to spend less. If you're not getting a wage hike, you're not going to spend as much. So likely the Reserve Bank, they will take encouragement that they're seeing more capacity in the labour market and that wage costs are moderating. But, if we take the labour costs that came out yesterday, they're still over 4%. So that's still higher than their 1 to 3% inflationary target.
The Reserve Bank's remit used to have to include unemployment, right? Is that no longer part of it because of the government's tightening of its focus?
Exactly. So it used to be to ensure that there's maximum sustainable employment along with price stability. And now their mandate is solely focused on that price stability. But, the two really do go hand in hand because the labour market has a massive inflationary impact.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you very much for your time this morning. I do appreciate it. That is Milford Asset Management Investment Analyst Katlyn, and we're talking business every single Tuesday and every single Thursday thanks to our friends at Milford.